I never thought my marriage would end over a slice of key lime pie. It was a Tuesday night in Austin, Texas. We were at Big Henry's Diner, the kind of place where the Formica tables are chipped, the coffee's bottomless, and the servers call you Hon whether you're 9 or 90. It used to be our spot. A place where we'd split a burger and fries, tease each other about who could eat more pie. A place where we used to laugh. But that night, the air between us was heavy. Kelsey sat across from me, her arms folded, her jaw tight. She barely touched her food. Her eyes flicked to her phone every few seconds, like it might save her from having to actually talk to me. "You haven't touched your pie," I said, trying to keep my voice light. She sighed. "I'm not hungry." I pushed my plate away. "Kels, come on. We've been walking on eggshells for weeks. Can we just talk?" She stared at me for a moment, and I swear, there was something cold in her eyes I'd never seen before. Not anger. Not sadness. Just disinterest. "Talk about what, Ethan?" she said. "We've been over this." "No," I said. "We've danced around it. There's a difference." The waitress dropped off the check, and Kelsey snatched it up so fast the table shook. She slapped a few bills down without looking at the total. "Let's just go," she muttered. The ride home was silent except for the rain tapping against the windshield. Our house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac in a neighborhood called Sweetwater Pines, the kind of place where everyone has a welcome mat and a Pinterest-worthy front porch. As we pulled into the driveway, she finally spoke. "I'm tired, Ethan. Tired of pretending everything's fine." "Then stop pretending," I said, feeling a crack form inside me. She turned to me, her face illuminated by the glow of the dashboard. "I don't owe you intimacy," she said flatly. For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. The words hung in the air, sharp and final. Like a guillotine blade. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. I don't owe you my body just because you bought me dinner or because you married me. Kels, this isn't about." I trailed off, unsure how to even begin. She got out of the car, slamming the door behind her, leaving me alone with the smell of rain and something else. Something like death. The death of the marriage I'd thought was rock solid. I wish I could say that night was a one-off. A moment of heat that blew over. It wasn't. Over the next few weeks, Kelsey became a ghost in our house. She'd come home late from work, muttering about deadlines. She'd sleep in the guest room some nights, claiming she needed space. She'd laugh at texts she never shared, spend weekends on girls' trips that started feeling suspiciously frequent. I tried. God, I tried. I booked us a weekend at a bed and breakfast out in Fredericksburg. Wine tastings, sunsets, no distractions. She bailed the night before we were supposed to leave. "Something came up at work," she said, not even meeting my eyes. So I went alone. Sat there on the porch of a 100-year-old farmhouse, sipping Cabernet while couples walked by holding hands. It was there, under a sky smeared with stars, that the first real thought of divorce crossed my mind. But I pushed it down. Because when you're raised the way I was, Baptist, Southern, loyal to a fault, you don't quit just because things get hard. Or at least, that's what I believed. The next sign came from someone I least expected, Marcus. Marcus was Kelsey's older brother. Ex-Marine. Tattooed, no filter, fiercely protective of his family. We'd always gotten along well enough, but we weren't close. One Sunday, he showed up on my porch with a six-pack of Shiner Bock and a look that said he wasn't here to watch football. "Mind if I come in?" "Sure," I said, stepping aside. We sat on the back patio, the Texas heat already thick even though it was barely noon. "Look," he said, cracking open a beer. "I'm not trying to stir shit. But you deserve to know. Kelsey's been acting real different lately." "Yeah," I said, dryly. "I noticed." He hesitated. "Then, you think she's cheating?" I blinked at him. "What?" "I seen her," he said. Downtown. Couple times. Not with work friends either. With who? He shook his head. Some guy. Drives a black Dodge Charger. Tall, lotta tattoos. I swallowed hard. Tried to laugh it off. Maybe it's someone from work. Marcus gave me a look that said he wasn't buying it. Just, keep your eyes open, man. I didn't sleep that night. Over the next few weeks, I did exactly what he said. I kept my eyes open. And God help me, I hated what I saw. Kelsey's texts became even more guarded. She started locking her phone with a password. Changed her work schedule so often I couldn't keep up. There were weekends she left for retreats, but came home with tan lines and a cheap necklace from some tourist trap. One night, after she fell asleep early, I scrolled through our shared iCloud account on my laptop. There they were. Photos she forgot to delete. A beach. A bonfire. Her in a sundress, smiling at someone behind the camera. A man's tattooed arm slipping around her waist. Not a coworker. Not a girl's trip. Something inside me broke then. But still, I didn't confront her. Not yet. I had a better idea. I started playing dumb. Pretending everything was fine. Going to work, mowing the lawn, waving to the neighbors. All while quietly, methodically, pulling away. I opened a separate bank account. Started moving money over in small, unnoticeable amounts. I found a divorce lawyer, a sharp-as-nails woman named Olivia Kane who didn't blink when I explained the situation. You ready to play the long game, Ethan? She asked, her eyes glittering. Born ready. We crafted a plan. One that would let me walk away clean. No alimony, no splitting the house, no drama. Because if Kelsey wanted freedom, I was going to hand it to her with a smile. But not before I made sure she realized exactly what she was losing. The final piece fell into place at our neighbor's barbecue. Dan and Lisa lived 2 doors down. Good people. They threw an annual Labor Day bash, complete with a bouncy house for the kids and enough brisket to feed an army. I wasn't going to go. But then Lisa texted me personally. It'd mean a lot if you and Kelsey came. So we went. For appearances. Kelsey spent the whole afternoon glued to her phone, sipping mimosas with the neighborhood girls, laughing too loud at jokes I wasn't part of. I spent the whole afternoon with Amber. Amber was Lisa's younger sister. Just moved to Austin from Phoenix. Blonde, smart, with a laugh that made you want to tell her all your secrets. We bumped into each other by the cooler. Started talking. And just like that, I realized I hadn't felt truly seen in months. When Kelsey finally noticed us laughing together, her eyes narrowed. Jealousy. The first real emotion I'd seen from her in a year. Good. Let her wonder. Because the game had officially begun. After that barbecue, everything shifted. I stopped trying to fix what was already broken. Instead, I started building my own quiet escape plan. Every night after Kelsey went to bed early, or more often, didn't come home at all, I would sit at the kitchen counter with my laptop, researching apartments, storage units, divorce precedents in Texas. It was like planning a jailbreak, only the prison was my own damn house. Amber became my unexpected ally. It started with texts. Simple, harmless stuff. Hey, you left your sunglasses at Lisa's. Want me to drop them by? Crazy weather today. Hope you stayed dry. I kept it friendly. Polite. But beneath that surface, something was shifting. Because Amber saw me. Actually saw me. She'd ask how my day was and actually listen. She'd laugh at my jokes without checking her phone halfway through. She'd look at me like I was a man, not a burden. Meanwhile, Kelsey grew bolder. She stopped bothering with excuses. Whole weekends disappeared into the ether with a vague, "Don't wait up," tossed over her shoulder. One Friday night, she sauntered in around 2 a.m., smelling like cheap cologne and smoke. I pretended to be asleep, my fists clenched so tight under the covers my nails dug crescents into my palms. The next morning, over burnt toast and forced small talk, she said it. "You know," Kelsey said, stirring her coffee with mechanical precision, "people grow apart. It's not anyone's fault." "Yeah," I said. "Sometimes it is." She blinked. Like she hadn't expected me to push back. Good. Let her start wondering just how much I knew. The Real kicker came 2 weeks later. I was pulling into our driveway after a brutal 12-hour shift when I saw it, a black Dodge Charger parked 2 houses down. Right across the street. My stomach twisted, but I kept driving, circling the block like I was lost. When I swung by again, I saw him. Tall. Tattoos snaking up both arms. A cocky grin as he leaned against the car, texting. And then Kelsey appeared, wearing that same sundress from the beach photos. She practically skipped over to him. They kissed. Right there. In broad daylight. In our neighborhood. In front of the house we bought together. I should have been furious. Should have stomped the gas pedal and peeled into the driveway, ready for a screaming match on the lawn. Instead, I smiled. Because now, I had everything I needed. I spent the next few days putting the final pieces in place. Found an apartment, small, but clean, just outside of downtown Austin. Rented a storage unit and started moving things there piece by piece. The expensive bourbon collection. My guitar. Family photos. The things that mattered. Everything else. Let her have it. I even adopted a dog from the shelter. A 3-legged mutt named Charlie who wagged his whole body when he saw me. Charlie didn't lie. Charlie didn't cheat. Charlie was better company than my wife. Finally, one Thursday evening, I sat Kelsey down. She was half watching TV, scrolling her phone with the other hand. "Kels," I said. "We need to talk." She sighed dramatically, tossing her phone aside. "Oh God, not this again." "No," I said. "This is new." I pulled the manila envelope from under my chair and slid it across the coffee table. "What's this?" she asked, suspicion creeping into her voice. "Divorce papers." She blinked. For the first time in months, she actually looked at me. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." She opened the envelope, scanning the first page. Her mouth moved silently over the words. "You're leaving me," she said, voice small. "No," I said, standing. "I'm setting you free." As I walked toward the door, Charlie trotting at my heels, I tossed one last look over my shoulder. "You said you don't owe me intimacy," I said. "Well, I don't owe you a marriage." Then I walked out into the Texas night, feeling lighter than I had in years. Freedom tasted strange at first. My new apartment in East Austin smelled like fresh paint and old linoleum. The rent was cheap, the neighbors loud, and the walls thin enough that I could hear someone sobbing through the vents most nights. But it was mine. No memory of broken promises clung to these walls. Charlie adapted faster than I did. Within days, he had a favorite sunspot on the battered leather couch I'd bought off Craigslist. He'd curl up there, one ear twitching whenever I moved around the tiny space. Meanwhile, Kelsey tried to pretend she wasn't unraveling. It started with texts. "Can we talk? You're being childish. You're really going to throw away 5 years over one mistake." One mistake. That was rich. I ignored them all. Then came the emails. Then the voicemails. Each one a different tactic, anger, tears, bargaining. She even showed up at my apartment once, standing in the parking lot in heels and a dress too short to pass off as casual. Charlie barked like hell until she gave up and left. The real surprise, though, wasn't Kelsey. It was Amber. We kept crossing paths. Coffee runs, grocery store aisles, late-night walks with Charlie. Always casual. Always accidental. But one night, about a month after I'd moved out, she invited me to a backyard barbecue her sister Lisa was throwing. "Just come," she said, grinning. "You've been a ghost." I figured, why not? The night was humid, the sky threatening rain, but the food was good and the beer was cold. Amber and I ended up sitting on the back steps, laughing about some drunk guy trying to juggle lawn chairs. At some point, the conversation drifted to our lives. Our regrets. Our futures. "I think you're brave," Amber said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Most people stay miserable because it's easier." Brave? I laughed. Feels more like stupid most days. "Nah," she said, nudging me with her shoulder. "Takes guts to start over." Her hand lingered on mine just a little too long to be accidental. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't pull away. Meanwhile, Kelsey was busy destroying her own life. Through the neighborhood grapevine, I heard whispers. The guy she'd left me for, Mr. Dodge Charger, wasn't exactly Prince Charming. Arrested for assault. Fired from his job. Rumors of drug problems. Kelsey had bet everything on a loser. Couldn't have scripted it better myself. One Saturday morning, I bumped into Lisa at the farmer's market. "You hear about Kelsey?" she asked, lowering her sunglasses. "What now?" "She's living with her mom." Yikes. "Anne." Lisa hesitated. "She's pregnant." My stomach didn't even flinch. "Not mine," I said dryly. Lisa chuckled. "No one thinks it is." I bought my tomatoes and went home whistling. That night, Amber came over. Nothing was said. No big declarations. No messy conversations about where this was going. She sat on my couch. Charlie curled up between us. And somehow, between sips of cheap wine and bad sitcom reruns, her head found my shoulder. For the first time in a year, I felt okay. Not whole. Not healed. But okay. And that was enough. For now. Life settled into something resembling peace. I worked. I walked Charlie. I met Amber for coffee or late-night burgers at the greasy diner down the street. There were no grand declarations, no promises we couldn't keep. Just two broken people figuring it out. But peace never lasts. One evening, I came home to find a letter taped to my door. No return address. Just my name written in shaky handwriting. Inside was a single photograph. It was Kelsey. But not the Kelsey I remembered. She looked haggard, eyes hollow, standing outside a rundown motel on the outskirts of town. Clutching a suitcase. Alone. On the back of the photo, one sentence was scrawled in red ink. "You should know what you're running from." I stared at it for a long time, my mind racing. Who sent this? Why now? Was it a warning? A threat? I should have thrown it away. Instead, I tucked it into the drawer of my nightstand and tried to forget about it. A few days later, Amber and I were at the park with Charlie when I noticed a black car idling by the curb. Not the Dodge Charger. This one was different. Darker. Windows tinted so black it was impossible to see inside. "You see that?" I asked, nodding toward it. Amber squinted. "Creepy. Maybe just someone waiting for a pickup. Maybe." But my gut said otherwise. When we left the park, the car pulled out behind us. Stayed a few car lengths back. Turned when we turned. I took a detour through an alley. The car followed. Finally, I pulled into a gas station and parked. The black car kept driving. Amber watched it disappear down the road, her mouth tight. "What the hell is going on, Ethan?" I didn't have an answer. Not yet. That night, unable to sleep, I sat on the couch flipping through old photos on my phone. Me and Kelsey in happier times. Smiling at some cookout. Laughing on a boat at Lake Travis. She looked so real, so genuine. But had it all been fake? Had she always been playing a part? Charlie laid his head on my knee with a heavy sigh. Yeah, buddy, I muttered. Me too. And then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me swipe the screen. Hello. At first, nothing but static. Then a whisper, almost too soft to hear. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Click. The line went dead. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. What the hell was happening? The next morning, I made a decision. I was done reacting. It was time to get ahead of whatever this was. Amber wasn't thrilled about it, but she understood. Just be careful, she said, squeezing my hand. Always am, I lied. I started with the motel from the photo. Dusty Trails Inn, just off the highway. I drove there late in the afternoon, the sun bleeding into the horizon. The place was worse up close. Paint peeling, parking lot cracked and weedy, a neon vacancy sign buzzing weakly. I walked up to the front desk, where a bored-looking kid barely old enough to shave was playing on his phone. Looking for someone, I said, sliding the photo across the counter. He glanced at it. Shrugged. She's gone. Gone where? Don't know, he said, picking at his nails. Checked out a week ago. Left in a hurry. Did she leave anything behind? He hesitated. Then reached under the counter and pulled out a battered leather journal. Cleaning crew found this. He handed it over like it was radioactive. I flipped it open. Inside were pages and pages of Kelsey's handwriting. At first, it was just rambling. Apologies. Regrets. But then the entries shifted. Names. Dates. Places. Some I recognized. Some I didn't. And at the very bottom, scrawled across the last page. They're watching me. They're watching you too. I closed the journal slowly, my blood running cold. Kelsey hadn't just screwed up our marriage. She dragged me into something much bigger. Something dangerous. And whatever it was, it wasn't over yet. You never realize how fast your life can spiral until it does. After finding Kelsey's journal, sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow crossing my window, made my heart lurch. Charlie, ever faithful, would growl low in his throat some nights, staring at the front door like he expected it to burst open. And maybe he was right. Because the phone calls started again. Always at night. Always from an unknown number. Sometimes it was breathing. Sometimes it was static. Once, it was a man's voice, slow and deliberate. Stop digging. I couldn't stop. Not now. I spent days cross-referencing the names and places Kelsey had scribbled in her journal. A pattern emerged. A network. They weren't just random spots. They were meeting points, storage facilities, drop-off locations scattered across Texas and even bleeding into New Mexico. Drugs, maybe. Or something worse. And somehow, my wife, the woman who once cried during ASPCA commercials, had gotten herself tangled up in it. I wasn't just dealing with betrayal anymore. I was dealing with something criminal. Something lethal. One name popped up more than once, Garrett Lowe. A quick search showed nothing. No Facebook, no LinkedIn, no arrest records. He was a ghost. But Amber had a cousin in law enforcement. Quietly, carefully, she reached out. The answer came back 2 days later. Garrett Lowe was an alias. Real name, Marcus Trent. Ex-military. Dishonorably discharged. Wanted for questioning in multiple states. Arms dealing. Human trafficking. Murder. And Kelsey had been photographed with him. Smiling. The black car started showing up more frequently after that. Always parked just far enough away to stay technically legal. Always waiting. Watching. Once, I walked right up to it, Charlie at my side, my heart hammering. The window rolled down an inch. Enough for me to hear a warning hissed from the darkness. Drop it. Charlie bared his teeth. I didn't flinch. I simply smiled, turned around, and walked away. Because they thought they were hunting me. But they had no idea what I'd been preparing. That night, Amber and I packed bags. Not much. Essentials only. We couldn't stay. Not here. Before we left, I went into my bedroom one last time. Pulled out the battered journal. Flipped to the last page. And there, written in Kelsey's desperate, shaky handwriting, was a note I'd missed before. If you're reading this, it's already started. Trust no one. Not even her. Her. My blood turned to ice. Was Kelsey warning me about Amber? Or someone else? I didn't know. And now, it was too late to turn back. The road out of Austin was dark and empty, headlights cutting a path through the thick Texas night. Amber sat quietly in the passenger seat, her arms folded, staring out at nothing. Charlie was curled up in the back seat, ears twitching every few minutes at some sound only he could hear. My mind was a tornado of questions. Was Amber in on it? Had she been playing me this whole time? I stole glances at her whenever I could without being obvious. She didn't seem nervous. Didn't fidget or glance at her phone. But then again, if she was involved, maybe she wouldn't. We crossed into the outskirts of Waco before she finally spoke. Where are we going? West, I said. As far as we can get. And then what? Figure it out when we get there. She nodded like she expected that answer. But I could feel it, the gap growing between us. Every mile we drove, the tension got thicker. We stopped for gas at a lonely station around 2 a.m. While I filled the tank, Amber went inside to grab coffee. Charlie sat up, watching her go, then looked back at me with a soft whine. I know, buddy, I muttered. I don't trust her either. When she came back out, she handed me a coffee, her smile tight. Thanks, I said, forcing my voice to sound normal. We got back on the highway, but my mind was still racing. Was it possible Amber had gotten close to me on purpose? Was this whole accidental friendship just a setup? Or was Kelsey wrong? Was Kelsey trying to turn me against the only person left in my corner? 3 hours later, we crossed into New Mexico. The desert stretched out on either side, endless and empty. A rising sun painted the sky in blood orange and dusty purple. There's a motel coming up, Amber said, pointing at a battered sign. The desert rose. Seedy. Perfect. I pulled in. Paid cash for a room. Inside, it smelled like mildew and cigarettes, but it had a door with a lock and a window I could cover with a towel. Good enough. We collapsed onto the bed, too tired to care about anything else. Charlie curled up between us. I stared at the cracked ceiling, the weight of everything crushing down on me. Kelsey. Amber. Marcus Trent. The black car. The journal. It all spiraled in my head until finally, exhaustion won. I fell into a heavy, dreamless sleep. I woke up to Charlie growling. Soft at first. Then louder. Amber was gone. The door was ajar, swaying gently in the desert breeze. I grabbed my jacket and the pistol I'd hidden in my bag, a precaution I'd taken back in Austin, and moved outside. The motel parking lot was empty. Except for a figure standing by the payphone. Tall. Broad shoulders. Tattoos snaking down his arms. Marcus Trent. Alive. And waiting for me. Ethan, he called out, voice smooth like oil. What do you want? I said, gun steady in my hand. He smirked, like he was dealing with a child. Easy, cowboy. I'm not here to kill you. Then why are you here? He stepped closer, hands raised. To clean up a mess. Kelsey. He nodded. She got greedy. Thought she could outplay everyone. Ran with money that wasn't hers. I swallowed hard. Where is she? Marcus tilted his head. Dead. The word hit me like a punch. I hadn't loved her in a long time, but hearing it confirmed, still knocked the air out of me. And Amber? I asked. He chuckled. Amber was never part of this. She got pulled in when she got close to you. Where is she now? Marcus shrugged. Probably running. She's smart. He reached into his pocket. I tensed, finger on the trigger. But all he pulled out was a slip of paper. An address. If you want answers, he said, tossing it at my feet, go there. Why help me? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Because I'm not the worst thing out there, Ethan. Not by a long shot. Then he turned and walked away into the rising sun. Charlie whined at my side. I picked up the paper. An address in El Paso. No explanation. No promises. Just another thread in a web I never wanted to be part of. I looked down at Charlie. What do you say, buddy? His tail thumped weakly. Yeah, I muttered. Me too. I loaded him into the car, shoved the pistol under my seat, and pointed the car west. Toward the end of the road. Or maybe the beginning of something even worse. Either way, there was no turning back. Not anymore.